So the Chiefs are getting some weapons back at just the right time, players that are key pieces to some position battles worth watching out for. Position battles, by the way, that could go all the way down to the wire. So we've got to take a look at that as well as highlights and standouts from today's camp practice. But first, how about those? All right, today was a lighter 10-10-10 practice, a non-contact day where the team cycles through 10 offensive plays, 10 defensive plays, and 10 minutes of special teams work. There's 11-on-11, 7v7, some 9-on-7s as well, and we also saw the first team offense go up against the second team defense and vice versa out there. It's a servicing day where the defense gives the offense a certain look where they can work on some specific things. A big mental day for the team with less emphasis on the physical before they gear up for more padded practices. And before I get into today's practice highlights, there's a lot of things to take away from it, really. The most random guest was seen out there today, hanging out with Andy Reid and company while also donning Chiefs gear. That was former Raiders head coach Jon Gruden. Gruden was forced to resign halfway through the 2021 season due to not so great emails he sent during previous years while he was coaching came to light. Anyway, seeing him wearing Chiefs gear was pretty surprising, but he and Andy Reid were staff mates with the Packers together during the 90s, so there's a history there. I don't think it really means all that much, like he's going to join the coaching staff or anything, but I had to at least bring this interesting news to your attention. Next up, the list of players who did not practice today were as follows. Linebacker Nick Bolton, elbow, wide receiver Kadarius Toney, ankle, and cornerback Kelvin Joseph, hamstring. Meanwhile, safety Justyn Ross, defensive tackle Derek Nottie, and defensive end Charles Minihue are still on the PUP and also did not work. The same goes for defensive end BJ Thompson, who remains on the NFI list after his health scare back in June. Some of these guys could be seen working off to the side though, like Nottie here tossing around a big old testy, or Toney here jogging on a big mat, and Joseph doing some high knees while pulling a sled. I will say Nottie looks pretty good out there. Maybe, just maybe, he will return soon from the PUP list. Oh, and Jaron Hayek is another guy who wasn't out there practicing, a new addition to the injury report. The Chiefs said he's dealing with a shoulder injury, and I have no idea how serious that is, but hopefully it's minor and he's back out there sooner rather than later. Then we saw the return of some very welcomed players today. Offensive lineman Wanye Morris left Friday's practice early due to something going on with his shoulder, but he was back out there with the helmet getting work in as the left tackle with the second team offense, while once again, that meant Kingsley Suamataia was the first team left tackle. And while we are at it, Joe Thuney worked in at left guard versus air, but when it was time for teamwork, Mike Caliendo was still the guy seen working next to Kingsley at the left guard spot with the first team offense. Another welcomed return was a couple of defensive backs. Nazeeh Johnson, hamstring, and Deon Bush, ankle, both returned after missing a few days, Nazeeh missing a couple more than Bush. Nazeeh is a guy who's battling for that cornerback 2 spot, so seeing him back out there is a very welcomed sight. Another corner battling for that spot is Jaylen Watson, who returned from the PUP last week, wore a yellow no-contact jersey Friday, but shed that jersey today. Both he and Nazeeh worked in with the second team defense, by the way, with Joshua Williams and McDuffie getting work in with the ones. However, as practice progressed, I believe Jaylen Watson got in some first team reps as well. Now, regarding Watson and that no-contact jersey being shed, I think it's off today because there was no real contact allowed at practice. The real test is going to be, once the pads come back on, does the yellow jersey for Watson return or nah? I would guess yes, but we will find out either way, most likely tomorrow. Then, here's some great news. Wide receiver Justyn Watson injured his foot early on in training camp after sliding for a pass and awkwardly rolling his leg under him. He hasn't worked since, even missing the last couple days of practices, which made me slightly concerned that there could be something more serious going on with his foot. But no, Justyn Watson returned today, and the best part is, according to Charles Goldman of A to Z Sports, he doesn't look limited by the foot at all. He worked in with the second and third team offenses today, even making a catch over the middle of the field against the starting defense with Jaylen Watson in tight coverage. That's a great sign for Watson, who's on the last year of his 2-year deal with KC, and I would imagine is hoping for a great year on his contract year. Some say a guy like Watson could be expendable, in danger even of making the roster, but he was third in receiving yards last year and a proven trustworthy target for Patrick Mahomes. So while you could technically move on from him for minimal loss from a financial standpoint, I have him making the roster. Now, a receiver I believe the Chiefs will give every opportunity to make the roster this year, but is still a guy that needs to ball out or could find himself gone, is Skyy Moore. He spoke to the media today saying coming into his third season, he feels prepared and has a great understanding of the system and the playbook. Things didn't go the way he planned last year, but he's coming in every day, putting the work in, focusing on what he alone can control, and just getting better. He did end the season hurt and dealt with it for a while before he even went to IR, so he's been working on strengthening his body, his flexibility, and other things like that to help with injury prevention so he could stay at full go all season long. Skyy thinks the wide receiver room is stacked this year, one of the best in the entire league. There's different types of players now, so much talent, and he's excited to get rolling for the season. And we will see how the rest of the preseason plays out for Skyy Moore. He's got a great attitude and is loved by teammates and coaches, so hopefully he can put together a nice body of work and prove that he belongs on the roster before cutdown day. Nikko is a guy aiming to make a push for the 53-man roster this season. He's a guy who was balling out at training camp last year before injuring his shoulder and being placed on IR. This year at camp is no different. So far, he's been making plays and answering the call, and today he had what was labeled as the catch of the day, hauling in a catch deep downfield in double coverage. He made a nice adjustment to the ball last second, and despite a bobble, was able to maintain possession and ran it into the end zone. This was also against the starting defense, so nice play there indeed by Remigio. He reportedly got a lot more work in with the first-team offense today, and he will be one of those guys battling to the very end for that wide receiver 6 spot alongside Justyn Ross and Skyy Moore. Maybe even Tony as well, if we're going to be honest, if he doesn't get healthy and back out there on the field. Another guy that isn't 100% safe to make the roster, but one that I think is going to make it, is going to be Hardman. Knows the system inside and out, can contribute in multiple ways, both on offense and in the return game. And he also caught an absolute bomb from Mahomes today on this play, hauling it in for a touchdown. He struggled at times in the past, tracking the ball down the field, but I did like what I saw from him on this rep here. And speaking of the return game via special teams, some of the most natural-looking returners out there on the day were Nikko, another positive sign for him, Phillip Brooks, Louis Reese-Zammit, Hardman, and Skyy Moore in that order according to Charles Goldman. And that's certainly interesting to see LRZ ranked above Hardman is looking more natural out there on kick returns. Not gonna lie, but hey, I'm curious to see how LRZ does during the preseason, as are a lot of you guys. Kickoff work was also an emphasis today, and you could see Deneric Prince and Hardman here on this kick, with McCole returning it across the field while weaving in and out of traffic. The new kickoff rules are way different than last year, a big change, and if you saw the kick returns from last Thursday's Hall of Fame game between the Bears and the Texans, it was kind of ugly and might take a little bit of time to get some effective returns going. But if anybody can figure that out, it's going to be special teams coordinator Dave Toub. He spoke to the media today saying he took several things away from that Hall of Fame game, confirming they are doing well with these kickoff scenarios at practice. He mentioned that Justin Reid is still a candidate who can do some kickoffs this season, even though weeks back he said Butker would be doing most of the kickoffs. Toub then revealed his top gunner choices to be Nazeeh Johnson, Jaylen Watson, and Joshua Williams. Nazeeh was one of the best gunners in the entire NFL, according to Toub, by the end of his rookie season, so there's no real surprise there. A surprise that reportedly happened today, though, was wide receiver Montrell Washington dropping a pass. Safety Jaden Hick blew up a pass intended for wide receiver Montrell Washington, which is quite the accomplishment, in my opinion, because Montrell has been balling out at training camp, making difficult catch after you know the deal. I'm not sure he cracks the 53-man roster, but I would love to see him on the practice squad if the Chiefs can sneak him on there. Then tight end Noah Gray and Carson Steele were spotted working in an H-back today, the running back fullback hybrid role, even though for Noah Gray it's a fullback tight end hybrid role, with Deneric Prince once again seeing all the running back 2 reps. And that really does have me wondering if the team is going to do all they can to see if Prince can split the workload with Isaiah Pacheco, and then CEH ends up being the third down back, protecting Mahomes out of the backfield and catching passes for him. That may be what the team is hoping for, but we may need the entire preseason to get the full picture. Speaking of Noah Gray, he could be seen here making a very nice one-handed grab in 11s versus the second-team defense. The ball was thrown behind him, but he was able to spot the ball at the last second, made a great reaction to it, reaching back, snagging it, and even spun around to get more yards after the catch. A very solid snag by the tight end, too. Next up, Mahomes found Worthy for yet another deep touchdown pass on this play here. There wasn't a lot of contact or effort, maybe even, from the defense here on this rep, but Hey, a deep touchdown is a deep touchdown, with Worthy once again showing a nice ability to track the ball deep down the field and haul it in. Another guy seen hauling in a deep pass and tracking it down with ease, adjusting slightly to the flight path to haul it in for a touchdown, was wideout Hollywood Brown, my perceived to be wide receiver 1 of the season, with Rashee Rice close behind if he doesn't get suspended at all this season. Anyway, I always enjoy seeing Hollywood out there because he makes sure he has a solid grip on the football before worrying about anything after the catch, which has been evident in most of his highlights so far at camp. And with that, you guys got to let me know your thoughts on the wide receiver room, the battle, some of these guys we talked about, your standouts so far at camp, at the rest of the position groups and the battles you are watching most closely. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?